Great, thank you. I recognize we have about 15 minutes or me in between you and sunshine in a Friday afternoon or evening, so I'm going to make this really quick. Okay? I understand it's been a great couple of days here. I'm sorry I couldn't participate a bit more. I've been here. I came for an hour this morning. But I've heard the buzz around the halls, and I've talked to Sohail a little bit. And just so pleased at the participation. I want to thank Sohail, I want to thank Krishna, I want to thank all of you and our partner organizations for making what I think has been a really successful 2 days happen. I guess what I want to talk about a little bit is a theme around journeys and the Foundation's journey in this space. And I want to start, however, by just talking about my own journey, because when you talk about journeys, you have to first own up to your own experiences and biases and your own truths, little t, not big T. And so I want to tell you a little bit about my little t truth, my experience and my biases, which have, I think, informed some of this work, but also informed and then butted up against the Foundation's journey and the Foundation culture as I found it 5 years ago when I joined here. So I started my professional career as a Peace Corps volunteer in Togo, lived in villages for a couple of years. I moved to Timbuktu, lived in villages right around Timbuktu for 3 years, and really sort of firsthand saw development parachute down onto these villages, and amazing plans and wonderful documents and incredible experts, much smarter than me, and then they would leave and I would get on with my blocking and tackling and iteration and failures and hopefully some small successes. That became part of who I am and my blood. I moved to a social marketing and behavior change organization and again found this world of iteration and getting customer and market feedback is critical to success and learning and improving. I moved to an organization called Mary Stopes International, which I ran for about 6 or 7 years, and delivering safe abortion, reproductive health, family planning, primary health care services to about 7 or 8 million clients a year. And again, wonderful plans that one made in London and headquarters would often just fail when they encountered individuals and customers and women with very specific needs. And again, this idea just became very much part of who I am, that implementation, execution, behavioral interventions, success or failure is iterative and adaptive every day. And that something all of you know and something all of you live is that decisions are being made out there, or in these organizations' cases, in there, every day. And the question is, are you making better decisions yesterday than you were yesterday? Tomorrow rather than yesterday? Are you a bit smarter? Are your people and those who are interacting with clients and customers and people with needs doing better tomorrow than they were yesterday? And that was what was sort of my founding principle as a development professional and someone who cared deeply about the issues that you all care about. This is, for this group, not a special story. I'm not special, and I don't mean to imply that in any way. All of you have your own special truths and your own special stories and why you have shown up here today and believe in this work around adaptation and iteration and just trying to figure out how to be better tomorrow and have more impact tomorrow than you were and you did yesterday. I tell this story, however, because I come to the Foundation 5 years ago and I find an organization that spends about $700 million a year on research and development. I found an organization, and I say this not as a criticism, but as fact and as impression, and an organization that I love, and I truly believe in the Gates Foundation and people and its mission, but I found an organization that was very R&D centric, that had a lot of scientists and clinicians and academics who have a certain truth, little t, that how they see the world. And so my DNA and my experience of adaptation, iteration, came head up with the world of science and RCTs, and $700 million of R&D spent per year. And I must admit, it kind of made me, I wouldn't call it a tailspin, but it certainly starts to create doubt, you know, in your own experiences, your own truth, small t. You start to wonder, do you fit? You know, is your experience valid in this world? And I came out the other side of that about 1.5 years or 2 years ago, thanks to a couple people in the room, Bob Hornick, I hope he's still here, and Richard Wright, who helped during a learning session around behavioral science and behavioral interventions that Sohail and Krishna had really put together around this theme of that development, that implementation of behavioral science is iterative and dynamic, not deterministic. And that was the theme of the materials, that was the theme of the presenters, that was the story that we spent a couple hours with, actually 3 hours over 2 sessions with Melinda and Sue. And I remember Richard telling the story about, this is just what the private sector, this is what the commercial sector does. And I know that really resonates around here because we have those sorts of roots around the private sector and commercial sector. I remember the story that we had told to during that meeting around the adolescent fertility transition here in the US that happened since 1991, where unwanted pregnancy and unwanted fertility had gone way down, partially, if not largely, due to secular trends amongst adolescents since 1991, but also because of interventions, because of policy change, because of Obamacare, because of better sex ed in schools, because of media, a whole bunch of reasons, I think 5 or 6 that the Guttmacher Institute had come up with. And we talked to Melinda about how this was, these contributed, we just don't know how much. These were the cocktail that mattered, and that cocktail, in fact, of 5 or 6 interventions over the last 30 years has changed as adolescence change, as norms change, as the world changes, and that we cannot, in the world of implementation and behavioral science, monomaniacally search for the active ingredients that our R&D colleagues are so dang good at, and then make sure that's deliverable and affordable, and then put it in something, and then just have everybody take it. That's just not the world that we can live in behavioral interventions, behavioral science, and implementation. And I remember vividly at the end of that meeting, Melinda turning to Sue and saying, that was a great session, and how do we, as a donor, invest now? If the world is dynamic, not deterministic, if your investments have to be dynamic in order to mirror the world, how do we invest as a place that gives out $5 billion a year? And I could see it was a bit existential, but it was also quite powerful. She asked the right question. And that asking that question has, I think, created space for Sohail, for Krishna, for this foundation to enter this, this space publicly, intentionally, and in partnership with all of you to start this journey around how do we actually evolve as a 17-year-old adolescent donor that changes very quickly, aspires to change very quickly, as 17-year-old adolescents do, whether they're human or donors, and become better, and become different, and become more impactful, so that those words that you see as you drive up into the Gates Foundation, all lives have equal value, really become the reality and not just an aspiration. So we really hope that that this is a convening that's the beginning or part of a process around culture change here at the foundation, but not to be egocentric about this, about the field, and helping the field evolve and change and aspire to a different culture where we can have incentives that aren't a barrier to iteration and adaptation, but incentives which in fact inspire iteration and adaptation. That we can be an investor and a role model for overcoming the barrier of fear of admitting mistakes and fear of course correction, because that means you might have been wrong. That we want to be an organization that helps to come up with hypotheses and questions that are crisp enough to come out the other side with really good, better answers that make you smarter rather than make you, or you're thinking a bit mushier. And we want to be an organization that helps you all who are on the front lines and others who are interacting with clients, customers, people who have needs, to have better real-time data and if not perfect data, at least good enough data to make better decisions tomorrow than yesterday. We want to be an organization that inspires us to continue to learn from other sectors, whether it's the commercial sector or whether it's that grubby world of politics, who I think are very, very good at this, and don't wait for an RCT to get their person across the campaign finish line and into election. That's the organization that I think we aspire to be, that you're helping us to become. And so I really appreciate, and I know the team really appreciates your participation, your challenge, and the beginning of this journey as we become, I think, the organization that we aspire to be, and the field evolves in the way that it needs to. So with that, I want to turn it over to Emma, and thank you all very much.
That's great, thank you so much. And I wanted again just to pick up on that theme of journey as we close up for the last couple of minutes. And at the very beginning we shared the slide of the 4 stages. So listen, interpret, react or act, as Sid said, and monitor. And I think we were very conscious coming into this first summit that there's lots of people doing good work in this area, and we didn't want to come in with assumptions. So really this in itself has been part of that feedback loop, and this first summit has really been about listening and also exposing each other to each other's talents. So hearing from all the lots of different COP organisations who all come at it from different angles, and we deliberately brought together a community of practice that is so varied. So I think listening has really been the key thing for this first summit. And off the back of this, our job really now is to go away and interpret everything we've heard and to start looking at, well, how do we take action as a shared community of practice? So one of the things we're going to start doing, and Richard, thank you for signing us up for this, a theory of change. So we did actually have one at proposal stage, and we didn't share it here, but we'd really like to go back, look at that theory of change, and look at it as a holistic thing, but then go, okay, what really can the curve contribute based on not just what we think we can, but also without duplicating other efforts that are going on. So what we'd like to do is go away and work on that, and then when we come back together, hopefully again in the fall or autumn, I don't know why I've used the Americanism, I should stick to my British roots, we want to be more at that act level. So coming back to you with that theory of change and saying, does this make sense? Do you agree this is where the curve can make the biggest difference? And how does we in a group in the room start to help activate that? And between then and 2020, what can we really do that, as was mentioned, make a difference not just in our own organisations but in the field? So that's really just as a quick wrap up, and then some very practical things. People have asked, we will definitely be sending out the presentations, so expect those, if not today, early next week. And then there's 2 things on tables. So one is feedback questionnaires, and I really like someone's framing earlier, which was sometimes people don't like giving feedback in the framing of suggestions, and we really do want suggestions. So please do fill those in before you leave for how we can improve the next time we get together. And there's also postcards, and this was an exercise I witnessed at another workshop which I thought was a great one. So we'd really love everyone to fill in a postcard of up to 3 things they would have liked to have done before the next time we meet. And it can be really small things like, oh, something I heard that I really want to share with a colleague because that would be useful, or something I personally want to look at within my own programme. And at the midway point between the 2 summits, it will be a little nudge, because we'll be sending that back to you to arrive in your whatever address you put on. And we'd like you then to think about, oh yeah, that's a reminder, yeah, I need to do that before we meet again. So that's it, and thank you to everyone who attended, who travelled a long way, sometimes with issues, with missed flights, etc., etc. So thank you everyone for coming to Seattle. Thanks for all your contributions, and it really has been, hopefully, a start of a journey.